सव्वेसी परमं हवै मङ्गलम्।
नमो 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 नमो।
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा, किसने लाखों को तारा।
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा, इसने लाखों को तारा।
इस महामंत्र का जाप करो, भवजल से मिले किनारा। नमो अरिहंताणं, नमो सिद्धाणं, नमो आयर्याणं, नमो उवच्छायाणं, नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणं।
नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणम्।
एसो पञ्चनमुक्कारो सव्वपावपणासनो, मङ्गलानन्ते सव्वेसी परमं हवै मङ्गलम्।
नमो 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 नमो।
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा, किसने लाखों को तारा।
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा, इसने लाखों को तारा।
इस महामंत्र का जाप करो, भवजल से मिले किनारा। नमो अरिहंताणं, नमो सिद्धाणं, नमो आयर्याणं, नमो उवच्छायाणं, नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणं।
नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणम्।
एसो पञ्चनमुक्कारो सव्वपावपणासनो, मङ्गलानन्ते सव्वेसी परमं हवै मङ्गलम्।
नमो 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 नमो।
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा, किसने लाखों को तारा।
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा।
I request Managing Trustee of Bhagwan Mahavir Foundation, Shri Prasad Chand Jain, to escort our Chief Guest, Shri S. Gurumurthy, Academic Corporate Advisor and a well-known commentator on economic and political affairs, to the dais. I request our Trustee, Shri Praveen Bhai Chheda, to escort our distinguished guest, Shri T.S. Krishnamurthy, former Chief Election Commissioner of India, to the dais. I also request Honorary Executive Trustee of Bhagwan Mahavir Foundation, Shri P.V. Krishnamurthy, to come to the dais and honor us with his presence. Thank you, sir. Would honor and felicitate the services of 4 entities who have been rendering selfless services to the poor and the voiceless. Let's commence the 19th Mahavir Awards Day function with prayer. I request Srimati Nirmala, Srimati Kala and Srimati Kiran to kindly come to the stage for the prayer. And I request all to rise for invocation. Kindly request the Managing Trustee of Bhagwan Mahavir Foundation, Shri Prasad Chand Jain, to welcome the gathering.
Jai Jai. Distinguished members of the audience, On behalf of the Bhagwan Mahavir Foundation, I am very happy to warmly welcome Sri Guru Murthy Ji, who has so graciously consented to be the chief guest of the function. The Guru Murthy Ji, as we all know, is a renowned and eminent academic corporate advisor and a well-known commentator on economic and political affairs. It is also my pleasant privilege to welcome Sri T.S. Krishnamurthy Ji, former Chief Election Commissioner of India, who has kindly consented to preside over the function today. I am very happy to extend a warm welcome to the members of the selection jury, the shortlisting committee, the awardees, all the distinguished guests and invitees, and members of the media who have gathered here. We have a very warm and a close relationship with Sri Guru Murthy Ji and Sri Krishnamurthy Ji. We are happy to be associated with them. The Bhagwan Mahavir Foundation is privileged and honored to have both Sri Guru Murthy Ji and Sri Krishnamurthy Ji as members of the selection jury which decide the awardees. They have been guiding us and supporting us in our charitable endeavors. We are grateful for their encouragement and affection. I warmly welcome both of you, sir. Let me now pause for a moment here to dwell upon the guidance and inspiration given to us by my father, Sri N. Sugalchan Jain, and my mother, late Srimati Chandrabai. My mother, who passed away on 5th of August 2016, was a great source of love, support, and strength in all endeavors. She took care of the family, shaped our personality, and created an ambience that propelled my father to achieve many successes in life and businesses. She epitomized the saying that behind every successful man there is a woman. My family and I are very grateful for the encouragement and love given to us by my beloved mother, who, though not with us today, will always be in our thoughts and hearts. We miss her presence, but she remains evergreen in our memory. I am sure she will be proud of our actions. I now wish to inform you briefly the objectives and activities of the Bhagwan Mahavir Foundation. From time immemorial, aims of compassion, empathy and philanthropy have been an integral part of our country's culture and ethos. There are many persons who render selfless service to help the weak, the voiceless and the underprivileged in our society. To honor such persons and to express our gratitude for their services and also to encourage others to emulate them, my father Sri N. Sugalchan Jain founded the Bhagwan Mahavir Foundation in 1994 with Bharat Ratna late C. Subramaniam Ji as chairman. The foundation initially presented a single award carrying a cash component of Rs 5 lakh. Subsequently, the number of awards were increased to 4 and the cash component to Rs 10 lakhs each in the 4 fields, namely non-violence and vegetarianism, education, medicine and community and social service. The foundation has so far honored 55 awardees serving in 17 states, and today we have gathered here to honor 4 more awardees engaged in selfless service to the society. Permit me to state the procedure by which the awardees are selected. Nominations are invited from eminent personalities of the nation such as ministers, member of parliament and legislature, senior bureaucrats, vice chancellors of universities and general public. Nominations are also called for through advertisement in newspapers and digital media. The received nomination are submitted to a shortlisting committee with following members for pruning and preparing a shortlist: Sri Kailashmal Dugar, former President of Rajasthani Association, Tamil Nadu; Sri P.V. Krishnamurthy, IA and AS retired, Honorary Executive Trustee; Sri D.K. Oza, IAS retired; Sri P. Shankar, IAS retired; Sri Naresh Gupta, IAS retired; and Sri K. Nandakishore, IAS retired.
representatives of the foundation visit the places of the shortlisted entities to obtain first-hand information, to examine details of the service rendered, to ascertain the overall genuineness and the positive impact their services have amongst the people they serve. The report is then placed before the selection jury, who evaluate and decide the awardees. The selection jury is headed by Padma Vibhushan Sri M.N. Venkatachalayaji, former Chief Justice of India. The other members of the jury are Pujya Acharya Sri Chandaji Maharaj, eminent Sannyasini and social reformer, Sri S. Gurumurti Ji, academic, corporate advisor and a well-known commentator on economic and political affairs. Padma Bhushan Professor B.M. Hegde, Chairman Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Bangalore Kendra. Sri T.S. Krishnamurti, former Chief Election Commissioner of India. Padma Bhushan Sri D.R. Mehta, IAS retired, former Chairman Security and Exchange Board of India. Sri Prabhat Kumar, IAS retired, former Cabinet Secretary, Government of India. Justice Sri G.S. Singhvi, former Judge of Supreme Court of India. Padma Vibhushan Professor M.S. Swaminathan, Chairman Emeritus M.S. Swaminathan Research Foundation, Chennai. The awards are presented by eminent personalities in a formal function. We were fortunate to have Srimati Pratibha Patil, the then President of India, Sri K.R. Narayanan, Sri Krishnakant, the then Vice Presidents of India, Sri Hamid Ansari, the Vice President of India, and governors, union ministers, and former Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Dr. M. Karuna Reddy, to honor the awardees during the previous award presentation function. For 19th Mahavir Awards, 158 nominations received from various parts of the country were considered. The selection of the awardees for the 19th Mahavir Awards was made by the selection jury on the 4th of April 2016 at Bengaluru. I am glad to inform here that the cash component of the award is exempted from income tax, enabling the awardees to utilize the award money fully for the noble services. I wish thanks to the selection jury for having so generously invested their time and attention in finalizing the awards. The fact that these awards have achieved total credibility over the years show the complete objectivity of the process involved in finalizing the awards. We are also grateful to the shortlisting committee for assisting the foundation and the sponsors for sponsoring the nominations. We are initiating steps to create awareness of the Mahavir Awards in remote areas of our country so that many persons and institutions serving the needy in difficult circumstances come to light and are recognized and encouraged. I request the media to create awareness about the Mahavir Awards. I acknowledge the support and assistance of all the other trustees and family members. I thank the foundation officials for their dedicated work. I wish to congratulate all the awardees and thank them for their presence and selfless service to the society. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you so much.
I request Sri Dilip Kumar to honor our chief guest, Sri S. Gurumurti with the garland. I request as a mark of respect and to express our gratitude. Thank you, sir. I request Sri R.N. Damani to honor our distinguished guest, Sri T.S. Krishnamurti with a garland. Sri Pramod Jain, our trustee, to honor Sri T.S. Krishnamurti with a shawl. We feel honored with your presence, sir. I request Sri T.S. Krishnamurti to deliver the presidential address.
My my sincere thanks to Mahavir for inviting us, both me and another Murthy. I thought two Murthy should not be on the table, but it seems it is divine will that two Murthis should be there. First, let me congratulate Mr. Sudarshan Jain for the excellent work he has been doing in our community. He is one of the finest persons I have come across after my retirement, and the way in which he conducts the foundation and other activities, I mean, others have to learn from him. So humble, so effusive, and so self-effacing, and very, very humble in his approach. I do hope that the youngsters learn a lesson from him, the way in which he conducts himself, the way in which he does community service. I know he went through a recent bereavement, and I think what has happened is that he has converted that bereavement into more charitable work. And I sincerely wish him the very best. I do hope he will get a suitable recognition from the government by way of a Padma Award, for which of course I have signed, I supported the claim. I don't think any other person deserves more than him, particularly in the field of social service. So my thanks to Sudarshan Ji. The Jain community in the country, and in particular in Tamil Nadu, have been doing an excellent work without much of a fanfare. At a time when there is so much of violence and hatred spreading all over, not only in India, all over the world, this small little community have been spreading the message of non-violence and love in a very quiet manner without much of a publicity. I would like to pay a humble tribute to the entire Jain community in the country, and in particular in Tamil Nadu, for the work that they have been silently doing. Mahavir Foundation, I have been associated for the past about 11 years, and I must again compliment the team that selects, that makes the short list, and also the final list we go through without much of a problem. Mr. Shankar, Mr. P.V. Krishnamurthy and others have put in strenuous efforts in comparing the various competing institutions and individuals for the various awards. Then about the amount. In fact, on his own, Mr. Sudarshan Jain increased it from 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs. In fact, we thought we should have more people should be getting award, but he was very particular that the amount should be enhanced, whether the number is increased or not, and it should be a very substantial recognition of the wonderful work done. So this year we have assembled to give the award. Mr. Gurumurthy is a very eminent person, the right person to be here today to present the awards. He has himself been doing a yeoman service to the cause of this nation, and today, as you all know, the country is really proud of the work that has been done to defend our borders. And while non-violence is the theme of this country, violence may be necessary to eradicate mischievous and notorious elements across. So I am glad that they have done a remarkable job, and we salute our armed forces for the excellent work they have done. So while non-violence message will spread through the institutions like Mahavir Foundation, it is necessary to protect such institutions by appropriate violence to defeat those counter elements. So with these words, I am very happy to be part of this function today, and I would like to compliment once again the Mahavir Foundation for the excellent work they have been doing in all these years. May God bless Mahavir Foundation and Mr. Sudarshan Jain to render more and more community service. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Today we have gathered here to recognize, honor and express our gratitude to 3 individuals and 1 institution who are doing selfless service for the betterment of the lives of the weak, the underprivileged and the voiceless. We are presenting the 19 Mahavir Awards to them. The award consists of a cash component of rupees 10 lakhs, a commendatory citation and a memento. I feel happy to announce that the award money is exempted from income tax. I request Srimati Shraddha to read the citation for 19 Mahavir Award for Service in Human Endeavour in the field of non-violence and vegetarianism.
Compassion Unlimited Plus Action, Bangalore, Karnataka. Compassion Unlimited Plus Action provides total care in form of rescue and rehabilitation of animals. It has exclusive animal care, clinic, geriatric and second chance adoption centers. The NGO is authorized by the Animal Welfare Board of India to respond to the complaints against people who do not give their pets due attention and care. Such pet animals are confiscated and brought to CPOAS shelter where rehoming process begins. CUPA organizes humane awareness programs in colleges and local schools. CUPA encourages people to visit second chance adoption centers where rescued dogs are adopted. CUPA's ABC Center carries out animal birth control and anti-rabies vaccination work in Bangalore, which is important for the welfare of animals. It has round-the-clock ambulance facilities for attending to the injured and stray, large and small animals, mainly dogs and cats. Outpatients and inpatient facilities are extended through its 8 centers in Bangalore. It provides medical care for all animals, averaging 2,200 cases per month. It also takes up legal issues for protecting the interests of animals. The Bhagwan Mahavir Foundation is pleased to confer the 19th Mahavir Award in the field of non-violence and vegetarianism on Compassion Unlimited Plus Action in recognition of its exemplary service for protection and care of animals. We believe many others will be inspired to emulate them.
I request our chief guest, Shri Gurumurthy, to kindly present.
Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Vachayanam, Namo Noe, Savvasahunam, Namo Eso Panchanamukaro, Savva Pava Panasano, Mangalanante Savvesi, Padma Mahavai Mangalam. नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा, किसने लाखों को तारा।
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा, इसने लाखों को तारा।
इस महामंत्र का
Dr. Sapam Navkishore Singh is a research scholar and a devoted social worker doing services for the upliftment of the misguided youth in the northeastern parts of India for more than 3 decades. He has been transforming the lives of hundreds of young people of this region who are exploited by anti-social forces through moral education, creative programs, publishing books, radio talk, and character-building exercises. Further, he conducts free medical checkups for students and youngsters. His dedicated service for the welfare of the youth has made him popular among the people and many NGOs in Assam and Manipur. In 1989, he established the Institute of Industrial Training and Production Center for the Educated Unemployed Youth at the 19th Mahavir Award in Creative Education on Dr. Sapam Navkishore Singh in recognition of his significant services in the northeastern parts of India. We believe many would be inspired by his services to society.
Namo Arihantanam.
The founder managing trustee of Shankara Eye Care Institutions, Coimbatore, Dr. R.V. Ramani, has been rendering exemplary service to the visually impaired for the past 4 decades with the primary aim of providing quality vision care to the poor and underprivileged of rural India. With the blessings and guidance of Sri Kanchi Shankaracharya, Sri Kanchi Kamakoti Medical Center was established by him in 1977, a clinic which provides health care to the poor. He established Sri Kanchi Kamakoti Medical Trust in 1982 and the Shankara Eye Hospital in 1985. Through programs like Gift of Vision and Rainbow, it serves the rural population and children. The Gift of Vision program has conducted 17,774 rural outreach camps, screened 3.13 million persons, and performed about 1.2 million free vision restoration surgeries so far in 69 districts across 11 states in India. The paying patients cover the cost of treatment of poor patients. The institution also provides services in Cambodia, Nigeria, Nepal, and Seychelles. Since 2010, the Shankara Academy of Vision trains doctors and paramedical staff, promotes research and development, and extends professional consultancy. The Bhagwan Mahavir Foundation is pleased to confer the 19th Mahavir Award in the field of medicine on Dr. R.V. Ramani in recognition of his exemplary service. We hope many would be inspired to emulate him.
I request Dr. R.V. Ramani of Shankara Eye Care Institutions, Coimbatore, to come to the stage and receive the award.
नमो अरिहन्ताणं नमो सिद्धाणं नमो आयर्याणं नमो उवच्छायाणं नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणं
नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणम्
एषो पञ्चणमुपकारो सव्वपावपणासणो मङ्गलानन्ते सव्वेसि परममहवै मङ्गलम्
नमो 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 नमो
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा किसने लाखों को तारा
नमोकार
Chhattisgarh. For the past 25 years, Srimati Shamshad Begum has been championing the cause of women empowerment, literacy and prohibition in and around the district of Dur in the state of Chhattisgarh. She has been the rallying point for all the rural women folk in the area to fight against illiteracy, child marriage, dowry and other social evils. She has transformed the lives of innumerable women with hard work and a strong determination and has provided leadership to women. She has promoted literacy among the rural people. In 163 villages, she has made the people completely literate, most of them belonging to SC, ST and backward classes. She is actively involved in the socio-cultural and economic empowerment of women and promotes family welfare. Pulse polio immunization and anemia control. She organizes eye camps, helps widows to live independently, and has established Women's Commando Clubs to fight against social evils and alcohol addiction. Srimati Shamshad Begum has ensured setting up of more than 4,000 self-help groups and encourages small savings habit among women. The members of these groups are today involved in farming, soap making and manufacturing of wheels for bullock carts. Such activities have given dignity and economic independence to women. Her dedicated service has secured her many awards, including Padma Shri in 2012. The Bhagwan Mahavir Foundation is pleased to confer the 19th Mahavir Award in the field of community and social service on Padma Shri Srimati Shamshad Begum in recognition of her exemplary service. We hope many would emulate her in the service of society. Thank you.
I request Srimati Shamshad Begum from Durg, Chhattisgarh.
नमो अरिहन्ताणं नमो सिद्धाणं नमो आयर्याणं नमो वच्छायाणं नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणं
नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणम्
एतो पञ्चणमुक्कारो सव्वपावपणासणो मङ्गलानन्ते सव्वेसि परममहवै मङ्गलम्
नमो 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 नमो
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा किसने लाखों को तारा
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा इसने लाखों को तारा
इस महामंत्र का जाप करो भवजल से मिले किनारा नमो अरिहंताणं नमो सिद्धाणं नमो आयर्याणं नमो वच्छायाणं नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणं
नमो
Sugalsan Jain, who is in the background of all this magnificent event which we are experiencing, and Sri Prasad Chand Jain, who welcomed all of us, and my good friend and one of the most important pillars of this institution, which is devising and improving the methods of assessing and awarding people in the most objective manner, Sri T.S. Krishnamurthy, Sri Praveenbhai Chadha, and Mr. Another Krishnamurthy, who always connects me to this organization. In spite of the fact that I have very anarchic schedule, still he is able to catch me and bring me to the meetings. Mr. Sugalsan Jain, who is the backbone of this, is not on the stage. But it is entirely in tune with the traditions of this country that generosity and humility always go together. If somebody is generous, the generosity should be matched by humility. And that is what we see here. And that's one of the reasons why, even though the request was communicated by my good friend Mr. T.N. Sitaraman, who is sitting here, asking me to be on the panel of the juries, I have never been on any panel so far to select people. This is the only institution of which I am a member to select someone for any position. So it is not because that I have agreed it is a great institution. I have agreed because it is a great institution. That's how I would like to put it. See, philanthropy in India is not independent of the culture, tradition, value systems and our spirituality. Philanthropy is the manifestation of all. You know, quite unfortunately, sometime in the year 2009, a very important political leader of this country spoke at a function organized to celebrate the award that was given to Bill Gates, Indira Gandhi Award for International Understanding. And that political leader spoke because that leader had no much understanding of India. And so the person spoke that philanthropic traditions is lacking among the rich people in India. It was an ignorant speech of a person who is not well versed about India, but that speech was lifted by the Wall Street Journal and a front page article was written, Indian riches, please open your wallets. This was the front page article in Wall Street Journal, which destroyed the reputation of all rich people in India because of the ignorant speech of an illiterate person
who heads a political party in this country. I don't want to mention the name and lose my dignity in the bargain. You know what is the truth of all this? There is a report by Hudson Institute. Much before this political leader spoke about the philanthropic habits of different countries in the world. And Hudson Institute is an American institute. And it said that the Indian and Asian riches, they give about 12% of their income and wealth for charity. And only 8% of the North American riches do. This is the study of Hudson Institute. And I was surprised to find that no one in the Indian media challenged that leader's illiterate statement with this kind of authentic study by Hudson Institute, one of the most famous institutions, studying the behavior of the rich people all over the world. And they brought out this report. But the entire Indian media is so illiterate that it could not even unearth this basic information available on the net and put it out to question that leader. How did you talk so poorly about the Indian riches? You know, in India, I have been from a village, and I know how the word charity is a recent innovation, intervention, interpolation in our dictionary. It is the idea of dharma. It is sharing, not giving. Shraddhaya Deyam, the man who gives must thank the receiver because there is someone to receive. And the giver should be humble to make the receiver feel great. It should not be the other way. The giver should not be great to make the receiver feel humble. This is the Indian tradition. And in this tradition, it is not only the rich people who give. There is one study by the Participatory Research Institution of Asia. It is called PRIA. This study was mandated by the Planning Commission in the year 2002 about the philanthropic habits of the ordinary people in India. And it was one of the most massive samples undertaken by the Planning Commission. 100,000 families in different parts of India were surveyed as to their philanthropic habits. And the findings were astounding. This was a study done in 2001 when Indian economy was not doing that well, and it was not considered as an economy at all. We were considered to be a rotten nation, poor nation, illiterate nation. The picture has changed now. But at that time, that was the image of India. And the study said that rural households, 2/3 of the rural households, share some part of their earnings for the people who they feel are needy. And 1/4 of the givers are educated less than third standard, illiterate, who we call as illiterate. By the modern standards, my mother was illiterate, but she kept us without a doctor till 1991, when I had come from England with urinary tract infection, and our family did not have a doctor because she kept us without a doctor. And I had to telephone to Manoj Santalia, who is the chairman of the Indian Express, say I have 104 degrees temperature, please suggest a doctor for me. She is illiterate in India. If you don't know English, you are illiterate. Those people, 25% of the people who give are illiterate people in India, and people with less than 8,000 rupees income per annum, 40% of the people who give belong to this category. This is the study of the PRIA Institute. So giving is actually sharing. You know, your constituency is not only the giver and taker constituency. You have to give to everyone in this country. No one's income in this country belongs to oneself. Anyone can make a demand on you. Your classmate will come, your villager will come, your distant relative will come. You cannot say no to anyone. Philanthropy is in the blood of India. And there is also another thing in the blood of India, not to talk about the philanthropy one does. People feel shy to talk about what they give. But if you look at many of these institutions abroad, top institutions, whether it is, I don't want to name them, but they are top institutions which are supposed to be highly philanthropic and hog the limelight wherever they go, because they are from abroad. 60 to 70% of their total receipts is for administrative expenses. In fact, many institutions which are working in India, NGOs, you can find a huge amount of money is spent on the staff, on the CEOs. A multinational philanthropy institution in India, in publicity, a multinational philanthropy institution in India appointed a CEO whose remuneration they refused to reveal, but it got leaked out. It was $3 million a year. This is a charitable institution, philanthropic institution, commanding global goodwill, name, power, influence. They can go and meet the Prime Minister when they want, because they ask for an appointment. Nobody can say no. It is power, it is not philanthropy. But we are seeing something very different here. I participate in meetings, but here the ecosystem in which I participate makes me feel noble, makes me feel good. I am in the company of a very select set of people. So these are people who, without any claim, including name, they have been working. For example, the selection method. This Shamshad Begum, you know, we analyzed and we got the reports and all that, but still the jury felt, you know, you must once again go and do a proper inspection whether everything that we have been told is right or not. And a verification was made, and whatever was stated was found to be true, and then only this award was finally given. You must understand the strictest standards on which this award is being given, and how these great people who are working for the society, without any claim, without any name, without any ad. I know Dr. Ramani, I went to his establishment. I was amazed that people do charity, but the scale at which he is doing, millions of people being the beneficiaries, operating in 11 states. I mean, I was just surprised, unless there was some motivation which is of a very high order, and divine blessings which is equally of a high order. This kind of scaling up is not possible. It's a massive amount of work. So each award here has been given, and the institution must feel proud. Sugalchand Jain must feel proud. Mahavir Foundation must feel proud for honoring these people. So I am extremely happy that I have participated in a function where such great people are being honored by people who are equally great, and there is a meeting of both generosity and humility. As I was coming, Mr. Sugalchand Jain told me, why don't you talk about economics? You see, economics we understand through newspapers, through GDP, per capita income, expenditure. This is not economics. Economics in India has a very different meaning. And if you look at the Western countries, I will not take much time, and it will not be an exposition for experts. I will talk in the way in which anyone can understand economics. It doesn't require much education. Economists have made economics a preserve of economics, which is wrong. All of us need to understand what is economics. I'll just take one differential. You know, this is on the basis of which my entire theory of economics is built, and an alternative viewpoint which we began articulating in the last 25 years have found some merit today, because nobody is in a position to reject what we are saying, because it is purely based on an out-of-box observation of different cultures and civilizations and what we are. I'll give you a small example. In America, 55% of the first marriages end in divorce. Within 10 years. And if somebody had some lurking desire to marry, 67% of the second marriages end in divorce. But if somebody had some more compelling desire to marry, 74% of the third marriages end in divorce. 41% of the babies born are born for unwed mothers. Half of them are school-going children. There are creches attached to schools. There is a complete collapse of the family system. And in 1998, an American sociologist wrote a book. Because in a family, there is no father and mother living together, or there is no father at all. And so he wrote a book. We are now emerging as a fatherless America. You know the result of all this. There is no one to take care of the parents, there is no one, certainly not the grandparents, there is no one to take care of the sons, daughters. With the result, the obligations which a family discharges, a parent discharges, a son discharges, a daughter discharges, these obligations have been nationalized. The family has been nationalized because these responsibilities have been taken over by the government. The government takes care of the elders, infirm people, unemployed people, unhealthy people. And you know what is the cost of this? It's a future responsibility which you are taking. Somebody who is in the age of 30, the government assures that I will take care of your life. That means the government has undertaken the responsibility to maintain him, because their longevity is also expanding because of the medical science which is doing the miracle of extending people's lives. So, if you reduce the future responsibilities in monetary values to present day terms, the Harvard economist, in which one was an Indian economist, has estimated that the present value of the future social security payments is $104 trillion, whereas America's GDP is only $18 trillion. So if anything is sticking under the economy of America to blast it to pieces, it is this social security. So there used to be discussions in economic discourse about privatization, which is the most privatized economy in the world. So in the course of a discussion, one Kumar Bhattacharya, who is a Warwick University professor, he has advised TVS also. TVS executive is not here, he has just now left. So Kumar Bhattacharya has been a friend of mine, so we used to discuss in the course of the corporate advisory, we had come close. Kumar told me, Guru, why are you opposing the privatization of Indian Airlines? Why are you opposing the privatization of BHEL? So I asked him, why are you saying these should be privatized? Because they are a burden on the government. Yes, why should the government run airways? Why should it run railways? Why should it run bus services? Why should it run some producing some turbines? These can all be done by private parties. The government should take care of the border, the government should take care of the things which are more difficult for private parties to do. I told him, this, what you say is right. But I want to ask you a question, which is the biggest public burden of the government in the West? It is social security, health security. I said, you can sell Air India and get money. If you privatize Air India, you will get money. But can you ever privatize social security? Because if you have to privatize social security, you need families. You cannot create families by law. You cannot create families by order of the government. It's a natural, cultural, spiritual, social evolution. They have destroyed the entire family base. Savings has come down. America, which was the supplier of capital to the world 40 years back, is the biggest borrower in the world. Asia produces 75% of world's savings, and America borrows 79% of world's savings. In fact, Venkatramanan, who was the Reserve Bank governor, he once wrote an article in Business Line. If you go and borrow 1 crore from the bank manager has left just now. The bank manager will harass the borrower. Come on, give me this statement, that statement. The borrower will be terrified. But if you borrow 2,000 crores from the bank chairman will go to the borrower. Are you okay? You need anything more? Because if the borrower fails, the bank will collapse. So Venkatramanan said, that is the economy of America. It has borrowed from all over the world. So if anything happens to America, the world will collapse. For example, take China. China minted so much of money by exporting. They have an export surplus of about $3.5 trillion. Out of which some $2.5 trillion they have invested in America. And they are only praying every day the American economy should be all right. Otherwise, if anything happens to American economy, China will go bust. So somebody said there is only one way you can repair the American economy and Chinese economy. Merge both the countries. That is the only way economics can work. You know, many people do not know the ratio of dependence of the Indian society on the Indian government is not even 1/10 of the ratio of dependence of the American people on the American government. It is because of this mutual sharing, mutual helping. I'll give you one example. In the year 1994, one of my friends had an appointment with the bankers and he had 100 crore settlement. 1994, 100 crore settlement means it must be 2,000 crores today. And so when he was about to go, in those days you could go and leave the car in the airport, come back in the evening, pick up the car and come back home. So he was driving his car himself. And his neighbor's wife came and shouted, "My husband has chest pain, please, she has to be taken to the hospital." And this man forgot all his appointment, settlement. His company is in trouble. He straight went into the house of the neighbor, put the man in the car and took him to the hospital. The person escaped, but his bank appointment went up in smoke for 4 years. He could not get a settlement, and he got a settlement at maybe 500 crores or 600 crores cost. So I always used to ask him, if you had not done that, how would you have felt? He said, if I had not taken him to the hospital and if something had happened to him, I would never have lived in peace in my whole life. That is relationship. You have relationship with parents, with friends, with neighbors, with relatives, with employers and employees. You can never do hire and firing in India. It's impossible. So there is a psychology working in this country. It's not these 125 crore people have no problem. Everybody has problem. Which country doesn't have problems? Your problems can be remedied. America's problems cannot be remedied. You can never make the husband and wife live together by giving tax concessions. So economics in India, the way it is being taught, has nothing to do with Indian economics. Family is the foundation of Indian economics. But the word family is not found in the textbooks of economics. You know why? Our textbooks are carbon copied from the Western economic thinkers, and there is no family in the West, and so there is no family in India also. I will conclude my speech with an experience. You know, this was in 1990s. I began to, of course I was always interested in economics as a subject, but I could not afford to read economics because that would not give me the kind of income that I need for sustaining a very large joint family. So I became a chartered accountant. But economics was my life interest. So I used to study cross-cultural economic studies, sociological economic studies. So in 1990s, when the liberalization, globalization tsunami came and swept the entire world, including India, I was advisor to many corporates. Many top corporates have been I was advising them or I was their friend. At that time, they had lost all their confidence. In fact, at that time, the Secretary Economic Affairs used to advise these Indian industrialists, it is better you sell away, you become traders, because if you are running steel industry with 2 million tons of steel capacity, it is nothing. The world is operating at 20 million, 30 million, 40 million tons of steel. How can you ramp up your capacity to that extent? If you are producing 10,000 cars, you need to produce 1 million cars to survive. You cannot sell it up. You don't have the capital, you don't have the resources, you don't have the technology. Only one man thought differently. I have great respect for him. When he was told you must sell your automobile industry, he said, no, I will produce a car for India. And that was Ratan Tata. That was against all the advice that international consultants gave him. And he could ramp up the steel production to 25-30 million tons. Lakshmi Mittal went to 40 million tons. Indians could do it. But Indian government, Indian economists, Indian media, Indian intellectuals did not have faith in Indian businessmen. Because there is no Indian thinking in India. The English educated Indian is only half Indian. This is my experience of English educated people. So when I took a travel across the country at that time, I went to Ludhiana, Batala, Rajkot, Jamnagar, Morbi, right down to Thoothukudi. I must have gone about 40-45 industry clusters where I spent at least 4 to 5 days to understand how people there work. I was amazed to find in Ludhiana and Batala. And what I found was something which no economist in India has done any study of. I have put this question in many IITs and IIMs. Which is the place with the highest per capita income in India? They used to be flabbergasted. I said, which is not the place? It's not Delhi, it's not Bombay, it's not Calcutta, it's not Chennai, it's not Bangalore, it's not Hyderabad. Tell me which place. No idea. It is Morbi in Gujarat. You know, it is a place with 2.5 lakh population and 1.4 lakh people are employed. 1,000 textile units, 1,000 diamond cutting units. You have Ajanta wall clock here, they manufacture the Ajanta wall clock and sell it all over the world. They established the clock making unit in China to take advantage of the most favored nation treatment with America to export to America, which they could not have done from India, and none of them knew English. So when I traveled across the country, my understanding about Indian entrepreneurship, the hard work they do. I went to Tirupur. In Tirupur, you know, they post about $4 billion exports today of knitwear garments. And 70% of the employers are educated less than 10th standard. Only 7% are graduates. This is the study which Boston Consulting made, and the title of the book is Fraternal Capital, and one Dr. Chari from India. He was seconded by the Boston Consulting to make a study of Tirupur, because they found from Tirupur so much of exports is coming, but in Indian map there is no Tirupur. Then they came to Tamil Nadu, there was a Tirupur. Then they wanted to study Tirupur. Then they asked the PSG Institute of Financial Management. PSG Institute was so happy they have got a call from Boston Consulting to study Tirupur. So these people arrange the car, they arrange the logistics, stay, everything. But the study was done by Boston Consulting. PSG Institute of Financial Management did not think of studying Tirupur. This study came in the 2002 World Development Report, how Tirupur, by using and leveraging on its social capital, was able to produce and has become the knitwear center of Asia. In fact, one finance minister asked me, आप तिरुपुर के बारे में बार बार बोल रहे हो, क्या हो रहा है उधर? He did not even know that Tirupur is posting this kind of turnover. I found Indian family is the basis of India, and our family savings to GDP ratio was 19% in the year 1992. And the rest of the savings was about 4%. 23% was the savings of India to GDP. So the government was saying, no, we need an investable capital of 32% because there is something called capital output ratio. If you invest 4 rupees, your GDP will grow by 1 rupee. So you are investing only 24%, so you are getting only 6% GDP. If you invest 32%, you will get 8% GDP. The difference has to be filled only by foreign investment. And so India needs foreign investment to ramp its growth to 10%. This was the argument against which we had to reply. At that time, there was Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati who came to India. And Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati was called the god of free trade in America. There were 2 gods in America. One was Alan Greenspan, who was called the god of money. And Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati, an Indian who made great mark as a person who had done enormous study on global trade. And he was called the god of free trade. And he was the person who devised the WTO, World Trade Organization. He was the backbone of the World Trade Organization. So he had come to India, and Dr. Manmohan Singh said, we are in a mess. Please tell us what we should do. He said it is very simple. The problem with India is that the Indian families save 19% of the GDP or their income. It should be brought down to 9 or 10%. The balance should be turned into expenditure. Once you begin spending, that will become purchases, then that becomes supplies, then that becomes production, then becomes employment. Once the Indian family savings is cut by 1/2, after 2 years you will find India will be an economic superpower. But he said, I warn you, it will not happen easily. Because the Indian women are so stingy, they won't spend. They are always bothered about their children, their parents, their husband, their in-laws, unless you make them irresponsible. I am using the word irresponsible. Make them spend money, and they are not going to spend money on your worthless goods. Bring goods from abroad, go to big malls, cut down the tariff. You must entice them to spend. And once you succeed in making the Indian women consumers instead of being family women, afterwards nobody can stop the growth of India. I said, this man wants to Americanize India. It's not possible. You can probably try to Indianize America. The reverse is not going to work in this country. I said, India will improve. India will become great only through Indian savings. This was my exposition. I used to travel throughout the country, meet all top educationists, because my view was heard. So somebody went to Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati and said, Mr. Gurumurthy is saying this. What is your view? Gurumurthy? Is he economist? If Gurumurthy is economist, you can call me a Bharatanatyam dancer. You can Google today, Gurumurthy, Bhagwati, Bharatanatyam dancer, you will get this news cycle. But you know what happened? You take the statistics from 1991 to 2014. The Indian family savings went up from 19% of the GDP to 27% of the GDP. National savings went up from 23% to 38%. And that is what yielded 10% growth rate. And in fact, Shankaracharya, who was the advisor to the government of India, wrote an article that India is the only country which has grown without any sizable foreign direct investment. You know the reason for what? It is actually the women of India who should be credited. In every town and city, I want a statue of the Indian housewife who has managed the finances without borrowing, somehow managing. They are the best managers of money. Though the husband may get irritated because of their tight control over the family finances, this is what has saved India. You know, in America, 23 crore Americans who deal with money have 120 crore credit cards on which they owe a debt of $3.5 trillion. $10 trillion is the housing debt. The entire American family is seeped in debt, drowning in debt. If you withdraw the credit card, the American economy will collapse. In India, you have credit card, people don't spend. It is only on the debit cards we spend. Debit card is your bank account. Have we ever heard any of these things being written or spoken by economists in this country? By policymakers? This economics, you can understand what I am saying, you know. This is economics. I am extremely happy that this is not what I wanted to talk, but Sugal Chandi told me that because you are known to be talking about economics, here also you talk about economics. Indian economics works because of a huge enhancing circular philanthropy that goes on in our society, in our community, in our families, in our religions. Unless we understand this, we cannot understand even why Sugal Chandi is promoting all this and sitting in the audience. This is our method. Thank you very much for.
Thank you, sir. I request Sri Krishnamurthy to release the 19th awards brochure. The first copy will be received by our chief guest, Sri
Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Vachayanam, Namo Noe, Savvasahunam,
Namo Noe, Savvasahunam,
Etho Panchanamukaro, Savvapavanasano, Mangalanante Savvesi, Paramamahavayi Mangalam.
Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Namo Namo, Namo Namo.
Krishnamurthy to present a memento to our distinguished guest, chief guest, Sri Gurumurthy. I request Sri Gurumurthy to present a memento to our distinguished guest, Sri Krishnamurthy. Thank you, sir. Now I request our trustee, Sri Vinod Kumar, to give vote of thanks.
Respected Sri Gurumurthy sir, Sri TSK sir, good evening and warm greetings to all. I am honored to propose the vote of thanks on this day of presentation of the 19th Mahavir Awards to 4 awardees in the field of non-violence and vegetarianism, education, medicine and community and social service. I thank Sri Gurumurthy and Sri T.S. Krishnamurthy for honoring us with their presence today. I thank them for their support, encouragement and affection. Thank you very much for having found time to be with us today and making the function a grand success. I also thank all the members of selection jury, members of shortlisting committee, invitees, trustees, foundation, staff members and media for their support. I also thank the awardees and give our best wishes for success in all their endeavors. I now request all to join us for dinner. Thank you. I request everybody to stand for national.
Punjab, Sindh, Gujarat, Maratha, Dravida, Utkal, Banga, Vindhya, Himachal, Yamuna, Ganga, Uchala, Jalati, Taranga, Tava Shubha Name Jade, Tava Shubha Ashish Made, जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 जय
नमो अरिहन्ताणं नमो सिद्धाणं नमो आयर्याणं नमो वच्छायाणं नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणं
नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणं नमो 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 नमो
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा किसने लाखों को तारा
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा किसने लाखों को तारा
इस महामंत्र का जाप करो भवजल से मिले किनारा नमो अरिहंताणं नमो सिद्धाणं नमो आयर्याणं नमो वच्छायाणं नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणं
नमो लोये सव्वसाहुणं
एतो पञ्चनमुक्कारो सव्वपावपणासणो मङ्गलानन्ते सव्वेसि परमं हवै मङ्गलम्
नमो 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 नमो
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा किसने लाखों को तारा
नमोकार मंत्र है न्यारा किसने